We're going to be talking about her new memoir. It's still pretty new, Hurricane Lessons. It's a memoir of betrayal and becoming. And really, it focuses on your late in life queer awakening. And it gets into a lot of very intense moments of gaslighting. There's you were inst- you were put in an institution against your will for a brief moment. So there's a lot going on, and I'm really excited to finally talk because uh, we've been emailing for over a couple years now, but now we're finally meeting. So thanks for joining me, Katrina,
Thanks so much for having me, Jerry. It's so good to meet you in person. Well, in person,
in person.
live.
So that's why I like doing these conversations. I've been doing them almost every Sunday for a while now, just because I love talking to all of you. And also, I'm jealous because I'm still working on getting my memoir published and working on getting my novel published. So one of these days, hopefully, somebody will be inviting me to be talking like this as well. Uh,
Yay! For sure.
so last year, we actually first came into contact in 2024. Started talking to you about publishing an essay, and we published an essay by you in early 2025 called I Was Gay and He Was Understanding, which is a companion piece to the memoir. So, obviously writers have to write these things to kind of help promote the book. And this is before the memoir came out, but it starts with the line, in my 46th year on this planet, I found out I was gay, and you're now in your 50s. So congrats.
Thank you. A whole decade of gay.
So can you tell us a little bit about your journey? And for those who don't already know about how long it took you to write this book, why you wrote this book, and just tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. So, in my 46th year, I was attending a Pilates class with a friend who was the mother of my daughter's best friend. And there was something that happened on the Pilates reformer. It sounds so seedy, but it was just a touch, right? It was a touch that kind of ignited something in me and made me, it was like a lightning bolt, just kind of made me think, what I hadn't been attracted to her previously. I didn't think that I was attracted to her. And all of a sudden, I felt this something that I'd never felt before. So that was the beginning, and that was the beginning of the book as well. Um, and then I was married to a man, and we had been together since high school. And he was the only real love that I'd ever known. And when I wrote that essay, Jerry, he was so supportive at the beginning. He said, "Whatever you want to do, I will walk you down the aisle someday. If you end up with someone else, I want to just be there for you." It didn't end up that way, but
Yeah.
that's when it all began. And so I journaled everything through that time because it was so tumultuous and there was so much happening. And that's when I started writing the memoir. And it was ultimately, at the beginning, it was going to be a memoir and essays, and it ended up being a narrative. So it's gone through a lot of iterations, but it took about 10 years to finally get to the memoir that it is now. So probably 8 years of writing and a year or two of publishing.
Yeah, your first book, your novel, came out in 2016, so it's been 10 years since then. Did you ever imagine you were going to write a memoir?
No, I did not. I've written a lot of personal essays, but I never thought that I would write a memoir. I really love writing fiction, and it feels a lot safer to write fiction and a lot easier to write fiction. So memoir is a whole different beast.
Did you I'm always curious because there's always people who join us who are also writers and are going through this journey as well of like, one, there's a lot of stigma to writing personal essays, and we publish them every week. Obviously, I celebrate them, I teach that, but a lot of people still think like, "Ugh, memoir." Like, did you have to get over that yourself?
I did, right? Often we hear that it's navel gazing and who wants to hear that story, but I think that the whole point of memoir is to make it universal. I think that should be the point, right? So that my experience isn't just my experience. It's a pretty universal experience. And you don't even have to be gay or find out that you are gay to relate to the story, I don't think. I tried my hardest to make it a like a reclamation of self kind of story. So and I think that's the key to memoir. And I also my first novel was published by She Writes Press, and Brooke Warner is an amazing advocate for memoir, and so she's always been in my ear
Mm.
with "Gotta Tell Your Story." Not me personally, but just memoirists in general. It's so important to tell those stories. So that helped get over the stigma.
Yeah, you grew up, uh, I don't know how you like to term it, but working class. You grew up, not wealthy. I understand that. I was a similar situation with basically a single mom. Catholic upbringing, so you had that baggage. And you have this line though in the book that I thought was really I, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you kissed a girl when you were young, but you didn't really see yourself as being attracted to women necessarily. But you have this line where you say, "I often found myself trapped between the rebellious fire that burned in my belly and the relentless need to be what everyone else wanted and expected me to be." And I think that is one of those universal moments that I know as a queer kid I felt, and as a kid being told to be the good boy and to do things right. So tell me a little bit. Let's unpack that sentence.
Yeah, sure. It's a big sentence, right? That's the kind of the whole crux of the story. And you're right. I would say that I grew up actually very poor. I had a single mother and a sister. Um, my mom worked 3 jobs just to keep us fed. My dad was not in the picture. He, abandoned us when we were young. Um, and Catholic school was kind of my safe place and
Mm,
kind of my undoing, right? But I always wanted to be so good. I wanted to be good for my teachers. I wanted to be good for the nuns. My mom didn't put that in me. My mom was supportive of whatever I was and whoever I wanted to be. But I think that just being raised in that Midwestern, small town Catholic space made me think this is what I'm supposed to be, right? I'm supposed to be this good girl, and good girls date boys and they get married to boys and they have children and they have this white picket fence life. And so I just always thought too, like growing up in poverty, that's when things are going to be fine for me again, when I have that kind of life. So it was the life that I always kind of imagined for myself. And there weren't really any models of gay when I was young.
yeah.
We didn't talk about it. If we did, it was a joke, right? It just, you're so gay. Or my sister and I were not allowed to say the word queer. And so we called each other quee instead, thinking that, that gave us a pass. But there wasn't language for it. And I always thought that girls just have crushes on girls, right? Like that's just what happens. And I didn't know if boys did too, but I always had crushes on my friends. And I just kind of thought that was universal. And it wasn't necessarily anything different about me. I was a tomboy. And so I always played basketball with the boys. And I was kind of, I did have this fire in me that was kind of sassy. But on the other side, I wanted to be loved and accepted and liked, right? And to think that I was doing the thing that I was supposed to do. So,
Right, there's that obliger, instinct or people pleasing that many of us, get used to, and in a way, that's what's interesting, even when you describe your relationship with your ex-husband when you were in high school, and he says, "I had this dream that I'm gonna be a dad, and you're the person." Yeah, and he basically tells you, "You're gonna be my wife," and you go along with it.
very much so, yeah. And of course, I mean, I wasn't forced into anything. I married him of my own free will, but again, I was like, "Oh, okay, well, if you had that dream, it was a woman in a rocking chair and he never saw her face until he met me." That's what he said happened, and I was like, "Oh, okay, well, that must be what my future's supposed to be." And so I was very much an acquiescer and kind of always have been. I'm trying not to be anymore, but I just did. I was very much a people pleaser. I went along with what was wanted and expected. Yeah, that's a hard place to be in.
And it's a hard thing then when you decide, "I need to do what's right for me," and at first you both decide, or maybe he decides and you go along with it, that you're gonna compromise by having an open marriage, and that is something that has come into the lexicon more recently as a common thing. I mean, obviously, when we were younger, people talked about swingers and things like that, but this is a different thing, right? And we have some memoirs. Molly Rodenwinter's More came out, and a couple others. And so your memoir also is in that bucket, right? Of the open marriage story, but yours is different. What did you think about that as that has snowballed over the last decade, let's say?
I think it's interesting that it's become such a common theme now. I mean, obviously when I was growing up, we didn't ever talk about that or think about that or and even I mean, I'm a Midwestern girl. I grew up in Indiana. So even as a young adult, those things were not things that we talked about. I have a very dear friend who was a swinger, who was in a swinging relationship. And to me, that was stepping so outside the norm that I couldn't even wrap my brain around it. And so when we decided we were gonna open our marriage, it was just an unknown. It was just a big unknown kind of scary thing, and we did it, and then I was like, "Whoa, what are we doing?" When we were filling out our Tinder applications, and I was helping him fill his out, and he was helping me fill mine out. It was so many feelings, so many conflicting feelings, right? Like, the Catholic girl in me was screaming, "What are you doing?" Um, but I think, my catalyst, who is the Pilates instructor, right? She once said, "I just think that monogamy is a lie." And I don't know if I believe monogamy is a lie, but I don't necessarily believe it's for everyone. But we are in a culture that is so ingrained in a marriage of two people. And I think that's a lot to expect of someone. I think we grow and change and become very different people throughout our lives.
Well, and at first, you do a really good job of explaining just wanting to have a friend, right? Right, needing somebody other than your your husband, your partner, and your children, right? And wanting to have more of a life than that, which I think is a very common theme for many women, especially as they realize, like, oh, I'm not completely fulfilled by the life that I have. And so you're just looking for female companionship. You said at first, not even knowing that it might be erotic or romantic.
Very much so, very much so, and we had moved a couple of times for my former husband's job, so whatever connections I'd had been lost in those moves, and I really didn't have anyone, and I had 4 kids within 5 years, so my life was dedicated to survival, right? Keeping everybody fed and dressed and bathed and running them to all their events, and it took up all of my time, and then when they started to become a little bit more independent, I felt that more. I felt loss of myself more. And then we were in a place where I didn't know anybody. And I remember being so excited to meet my catalyst because her daughter was best friends with my daughter. And I thought, how fun is this going to be? Like, we're going to just have these great moments together. We're going to go see Taylor Swift together. And it's all going to be wonderful. And then, yeah, things changed.
And that was really difficult to read just because you went there, right? With a memoir, you have to be vulnerable, and you describe these moments of obsession and also being basically yanked around emotionally, um, and and in a way, you were pursuing something that was not attainable. And looking back, I mean, you obviously have to relive those moments. How was that like having to put put it all on the page?
Well, Kirkus Reviews said that my memoir was so raw that it was sometimes hard to read. That's what I think about a lot, the rawness of it. And I think that it hit me most when I was recording the audiobook and having to read those moments out loud again. Um, and there's music, there are songs that take me back to those moments too that kind of take my breath away. It was hard, dredging all that up again is opening that one because she and I are not in contact at all anymore. We have no relationship and haven't for a long time. Um, but it's also hard to see how much of myself I gave up and how willing I was to do whatever I could do to
Yeah.
be in the presence, right? I just really lost myself with her.
So that was the catalyst. You call her Cecilia in the book and essays. And then you go through this really difficult, brutal moment where your ex-husband starts dating, you're not dating, you have a threesome. That is okay, I guess, but not really what you want. Uh, and you're raising kids at the same time. How do you compartmentalize all of these things?
It was a crazy time. That's the only way that I can describe it. I was doing dangerous things. We were both dating, so I met men here and there in seedy hotel rooms. And I mean, I just felt like my life was out of control. And I can remember the night that we went to have our threesome. And I really liked this girl as a human. I thought, oh, she'd be a great friend to have. Right. And then there was that whole juxtaposition of my ex husband being very into her. And as we were driving to be with her, my kids all had things they were doing that night, and I thought, "Who does this? Who, like, leaves their 4 kids and does this?" And there was so much shame and, there was every emotion imaginable, and a threesome really was not what I was interested in at all. It was we were trying to save our marriage, in whatever way we could. And I know it sounds crazy to say we were trying to save our marriage by inviting other people into it, but we didn't know what we were doing. And we were, figuring things out and making a lot of mistakes. And um, it just felt like everything was out of control at that time.
And you did have some friends that you could talk to about this, but is that part of it as well? Like, I mean, there's so much judgment if somebody says, "You're a mom, your most important thing is your kids. What are you doing? Like, your desires don't matter." Like, was that part of the, like, expectation you were dealing with, like, the judgment from your friends?
Um, I don't know that I had a lot of judgment from my friends at that time because not many of them knew what was happening. And
Mm,
really, the one I confided in was the friend who used to be a swinger. She was very, supportive in whatever way you need to, figure this out. And I didn't have tons of friends then. I had acquaintances because we'd moved so much. So the judgment definitely came later after everyone knew and after I came out. And there was more than enough judgment afterwards. But at that time, it was a lot of self-judgment versus friend judgment. Yeah.
then you in the essay we published and also the Huffington Post one and then obviously in the book, you talk about when you came out to your kids. That's intense as well. Like, that's not something I can imagine, to be honest. Obviously, I can't because I don't have kids, but, like, coming out to my parents as a teenager was one thing, but the other way around, it's like your kids have all these notions of who their adult parents are, right? And then you're revealing something. Tell me more. Like, I just wanna understand. Like, I've read it, but I wanna understand.
Yeah, coming out to my kids was the probably the single hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And they were, my oldest was in college and 2 in high school, and then the youngest one was in middle school. I think I have those times right. But we had to Skype in the college boy, and he hadn't experienced anything that was happening at home,
Right.
right? He'd been off at college, so he didn't hear the fights. He didn't, it was a tumultuous time at home too. And the other 3 had experienced that. So I think it was a little bit easier at that time for the other 3 to hear it, just the, "Okay, this is what's happening in our house right now." But it was still they were the one thing I think we did really well was we've raised really open-minded, kids, and I
Mhm.
think their generation is very open-minded too, and so they all just wanted us to be happy. They were supportive, um, and I think that what was hardest for them was the divorce. I think it was their dad and I splitting more than my coming out that was hardest. My daughter said to me, "I never wanted to be one of those families," and that really stuck with me, Um, and they've all had struggles, of course, right? Like it's it's very different to know your mom as your mom and as, your dad's wife and then here I am, this single woman who's gay. And it's a lot. It's a lot for them. And they're, most of their cerebral cortexes are formed now. They're old enough um, that they all are they've all come around, but I still think there's a lot for them to deal with a gay mom. So,
But it seems, and I don't want, to speak for your children, but it seems like you have a good relationship with, especially you talk about talking with your daughter about her own relationships, and I don't know how much you wanna share about that, but the fact that you can do that is amazing. I never had that sort of relationship with my parents, even to this day. Like, I don't talk to my parents much about my romantic or personal life just because I never felt safe doing that, and it sounds like you at least have that kind of communication with your children.
I do. I would say we all have a really good, strong relationship now, and they don't want to hear about my personal life, right? Like they're not very interested. It's there, and we can share things here and there. They don't want to hear about it, but it's not something that I think makes them feel unsafe or that they can't talk to me about. And my daughter really, there were 6 months right after her dad and I were splitting that she didn't speak to me, and I didn't realize I thought it was just because of being gay and the divorce, and I never really made the connection of how challenging it was for her that my catalyst was her best friend's mom, right? And so it made their relationships very tumultuous as well. And she was the first friend my daughter had in our new place too. And I was so focused on my own coming out and my obsession with my catalyst then that I didn't see that in her, and once I finally understood that, we were able to mend fences and we have a great relationship now. But yeah, they don't want to hear about my personal life, but they're okay with it.
Well, I will say teenagers and their parents always have a tumultuous time no matter what. There's
Yeah.
that that time in the 15, 16, 17. By the time I got to 18, it was all better. It wasn't better, but, like, it was we got through the stormy part.
Yes, yes,
Um, so
exactly.
that's yes, you've absolutely did that.
It was the hardest possible time really that I thought it would be harder if I had young kids to come out and have this happen, but I think emotionally and intellectually, it was so much harder for them during those times that they were processing all of their, feelings as well and growing up and growing into themselves.
So, before I get to the next questions I have for you, I want to talk about your metaphor of hurricane lessons because I do find it really intriguing that a person from the Midwest is using it as a metaphor. I come from the South and I've lived through many hurricanes and typhoons when I lived in Japan. So it's great to actually see how you've used the as a metaphor, but tell me how you came to that and how you structured the book using the hurricane lessons.
Sure. So my name is Katrina, right? And one of the great hurricanes of our time was Hurricane Katrina, and people used to call me that. And I play pickleball, and people call me Hurricane on the pickleball court, and like that kind of was my nickname as I was writing the book. And so then it came to me that that's very much represented, and I lived in Florida for a while too, so I have been through a few hurricanes now. Um, but that was very much the way things panned out. There was this before the storm when everything was kind of building, and then there was the eye of the storm when, the eye is like the calmest part of the
Yeah.
storm, and that's when we thought that we were gonna figure things out and,
It's calm
but
and strange. It's like the stillness is a very foreboding stillness.
right? And something's coming, right? That and then there it obviously is the after the storm part once we got through the divorce and I was into my new life. So it just kind of fit with my name and then the title came into place but my name was what started it.
Oh, really? Interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, I won't ever make that joke to people named Katrina again. I feel like it's it's not fair. Uh, but I definitely have done that before. Uh, so it took you a while to get it to this point. I wanna get in a little bit of the nuts and bolts. Like, tell me about that actual, like publishing is the hardest part, right? The writing is hard, but the publishing is even harder, I've found. So
Yeah.
for those who are here by the way, for any of those who've joined us, if you have any questions for Katrina, leave them in the chat and we'll try to get to them. But tell us a little bit about that, like getting it to this stage, to getting it published out there.
Sure, yeah. It is definitely the hardest part, right? You have this baby in your hands and you think everybody's gonna wanna read this. They're gonna that I love this, they're gonna love it. But memoir is really exceptionally hard to publish as well. If you're not a celebrity or, they want a built-in platform and audience and to ensure that you're gonna sell so many books. So I submitted lots and lots and lots of queries. And the one who first said yes was Sibylline Press, and they're a press that only publishes women over 50. And the acquisitions editor, Julia Park Tracy, wrote back to me and she said, in all caps, I want it, I want it, I want it. And there's nothing better, I think, than that, kind of affirmation. And then it was coming out during a very obviously tumultuous political time as well. And they kept saying to me, we've got you. We think this is an important story. Whatever happens, we've got you. And they have. They have been very protective of and supportive of me. It's not an easy time to publish a gay memoir. It's not an easy time to be gay. It's not an easy time for anyone right now, I don't think.
Right.
But yeah, it was I love the editing part. I had Alice Anderson, who's a wonderful memoirist and writer and poet, was my developmental editor, and she was amazing. So it's gone through multiple iterations of edits and workshops and all kinds of things. But when it finally came together and Sibylline said yes, it was pretty glorious because that's hard, and it took a couple of years to get to that point. So
Is the weird thing, that when you have to say, "This is done, I'm putting it to bed," you keep changing and keep you have an epilogue, obviously, but you have to say, "Okay, this is the version of me that I'm putting out into the world," and yet you keep evolving. How do you deal with
absolutely, yeah, no, absolutely, that's a huge thing. Um, And there are things that I would go back and change too, right? When you say a book is done, I don't think it's ever done. I read it now and I'm like, "Oh, I wish I would have said this or done this," or I think you just have to put that version of yourself out. Like, that's your snapshot in time, and that's who I was, and that's the best book I could write at the time, and so it's out there in existence, and, I think we all continue to change and evolve whether you've written a book or not, right? So, everybody gets different iterations of you, um, and I hope that as I change, I'm just becoming a better human, right? And but it's just that snapshot, and I've gotta let it go. It's not mine anymore, it's everyone else's.
And then you'll write the next book.
Absolutely, I'm working on it now, so
So I wanted to talk about a part of the book you quote Robert Fisher from The Fisher King and the Handless Maiden. And as you explain, in Sanskrit, there are 96 words for love. Ancient Persian has eight, Greek has three, and English has only one. And this is something that I've brought up many times. Like, we have this really crummy word that's supposed to stand in for everything. It's a verb, it's a noun, it's for your parents, it's for your kids, it's for your lover. Um, so for my I guess my question is, when as you say, when spirituality, intellect, and skin collide, how do you distinguish in love from love? So you have this question. So now I'm asking you the question you put in the book. How do you distinguish these things?
you're not allowed to ask me the question, Jerry. It's a rhetorical question.
Yes, exactly.
Um, I I'm not sure I have the answer, right? But there is a feeling for sure that's different when you are in love with someone and are experiencing that reciprocally. Um, I feel like love to me is safety and warmth and kindness and acceptance. Um, my ex-husband, I think he loved me in many good ways, but it also was a different kind of love, and a queer love for me feels so much safer and so much kinder and so much gentler, um, and it's just something that I think in your bones. I don't know, like you said, the word is inadequate. I mean, I adore my kids. I love them more than anything on this earth. And I love my friends. And I think that was part of what was so hard for me, too, because I had always loved my friends and loved my friends deeply and loved my cousins. And, how do you distinguish what is what? But I don't know that I have the answer, but I know that there's a feeling that for sure is different when you are truly in love with someone.
Yeah, so in a way, you already answered the next question, was is how do you define love? Because um, you describe both versions. One, that big spark, right? That thing of like, whoa, this woman touched me and I suddenly felt something change within my being. And then you have also that durational love, that thing that you work with over time that is about being with each other and growing together and changing, but also knowing that it can end, right?
Mm.
And that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Right, right, right. Um, I had something very profound to say that just slipped away because I'm 56 now and um, oh gosh, Jerry. I I don't even remember what I was gonna say. I'm so sorry.
So, um, you emphasize that this is the first real well, how do I wanna say this? You say this is the first real betrayal in a late in life coming out stories is actually the betrayal of self.
Mm,
And I wanna kind of unpack that a little bit because, um, as I know, like, I've met some other people who come out late in life. They've also tried to figure out how to keep their marriage intact, be in a mixed orientation marriage, have open marriages, all these different things. But tell me about that, this idea of the betrayal of self in this moment, because I thought that was really profound.
um, my former husband used to say to me during our really bad times during the divorce, "You have just built your entire life on lies, right? You have chosen to live your entire life as a lie." And I never agreed with that because I truly didn't know who I was. I didn't understand who I was until I was given the language and the experience to understand who I was. And once I did know that, I think that it feels like a betrayal of myself, that I lived this entire life that could have been completely different. And I don't obviously want to go back because I have these 4 wonderful kids, and I wouldn't have gotten them without living the life that I did live. But I did, in a way, betray myself by not knowing who I was better, or not delving deeper, or um, not agreeing to acquiesce all the time. I just became who everyone else wanted me to be, and that, I think, was the betrayal of myself. And then, and then it just spirals, and I'm sure that my ex-husband felt betrayed, and, I'm certain that my kids felt a betrayal as well with the divorce, and it just was then betrayal after betrayal, and he engaged in betrayal with me. It just became this litany of betrayals, but it began with me, um not knowing who I was,
Mhm.
and being who everyone else wanted me to be, or who I
Yeah.
thought they wanted me to be.
There's also a moment in the book that you detail that is really important, I think, for people to understand, which is when you get when your ex-husband basically puts you into a hospital against your will. And if it's okay, if you could explain how that happens and how we can make sure that doesn't happen to us if we're ever in this sort of situation. Because I'm assuming you've learned from it.
Yeah, I don't know how to prevent it. I wouldn't have known how to prevent it now, but, there was a night that I was in the depths of sadness and drank too much, drank a lot. I was drinking a lot during the divorce, um, and I called my best friend, and my words were slurry, and she was concerned, and I went to bed, and I took a painkiller because I have them for my back, and she called my ex-husband and said, "I'm worried. I don't know. I haven't heard back from Katrina." And I was out of it. I was very drunk and had taken a painkiller as well. And so he, I think, pretty begrudgingly took me to the ER. And, of course, after you're there for hours, you're sobering up. I'm crying. I just, wanted to go home. I had a job that I needed to be at the next day, 4 kids at home.
Mhm.
And the doctors asked me, "Do you feel like you're a danger to yourself or to anyone else?" And I said, "No, I'm not. I was not trying to kill myself. I was sad and I drank too much and I made bad decisions, but I would never do that. And I would never do that to my children." And then they looked at my ex-husband and said, "Do you think she is a threat to herself or anybody else?" And he said, "Yes." And
Mm.
so they basically, like, handcuffed me to the bed and took me to a mental institution on
Yeah.
his statement. So I don't know. I truly don't know how to prevent it. It's shocking to me now looking back that, I mean, I was pretty sober by then too, right? That I would think that my word counted more than my ex-husband's, but it did not. And I mean, we could go into all of this, but I also think women are treated differently within the healthcare system, and, that's a whole other story, but I would say maybe not have him in the room when those questions are asked,
Yeah.
because when he said it, it was a done deal, and I begged and pleaded, and I was taken away anyway, and then by the time, once that happens, they are bound by law to hold you for 72 hours.
Right.
So, yeah,
And you have a doctor who says that he understands and believes you and trusts you and helps you. But that must have been, I mean, you obviously were angry as well.
I was furious, yes.
And so
Fearful.
then
Go
you were
ahead.
going through a divorce, but how did you, I mean, I don't know. It just felt like you were trapped.
Within the system
Yeah.
or just in general? Yeah, yeah. It was, to me, that was one of the hardest betrayals, and I don't know, I can second guess his motivation a million different ways, right? But he was with his girlfriend now, who now is his wife. Did he want a break from me? Maybe. Did he want, a little relief? Maybe. And he called the one wonderful thing that he did was he called the woman that I was seeing then, to tell her that I was there. So I was very grateful to him that he did that. And I don't know if that was an offloading of his responsibility, or what that was, but it was maybe a small kindness after he had,
Right.
such committed such a grievance against me. Um, and my doctor in the hospital said, we can talk later about coercion if you want to. If you want to talk about, we can bring a lawsuit, we can do whatever. And it just wasn't worth it to me. I just, wanted to be done with it. But that was a pretty low time.
Well, one of the things I wanna find out, because you have gone through this journey and there are others that might need to learn these lessons, it's one reason why I assume you wanted to share your story, is first, was there any advice that you got, good advice that you got along the way of like, this is what you should do when you're coming out in middle age, when you have kids? Like, did you get any good advice?
Well, that's why I wrote the book, because I don't think there's a lot of great advice out there. And I thought, I wrote the book that I would have wanted to have when I was going through it. But I did have an online support group that's now disbanded, and they were called the Lilies, the Late in Life Lesbians. And so there was a lot of information that was shared there about, this is what happened at this point in my journey, and this is what happened here. And so there were lots of discussions about how people handled the children and the divorce and those types of things. But I don't know that there was no roadmap for sure. And I guess the only advice that I would have now is to make sure that you understand your finances and that you understand, that you have control over those things. And, custody was not an issue because my kids were older and I had one child who I wanted him to determine where he wanted to be because he was old enough to make that decision. But those are big things and they can be taken away in the blink of an eye, as was, seen when my husband committed me. So um, it's really important to have your ducks in a row and not go into it blindly.
Yeah.
Um, and I've had so much guilt too about what was happening that I didn't fight for anything. I didn't fight for
Mhm.
alimony. I didn't fight. I just didn't. I just said, take what's yours and I'll take what's mine and let's be done. So looking back, I think there were a lot of things I could have done differently to secure my own future a little better.
Mhm.
Um, I think,
So that could be a form of advice, right? Just to advocate for yourself and not to just throw up your hands and run away?
yeah, absolutely. Not to just want to have it done. Yes. And of course, there's going to be guilt. You're going to feel guilt. You're going to feel every emotion under the sun. And it's just important to stay true to yourself and keep yourself as centered as you can. Um,
Mhm.
because you come out on the other side with a life that is really just starting over. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
And you have started over, you're now living in Kentucky. Can you tell us how you ended up in Lexington?
Yeah, I am here. I am here. I have lived with a woman for the past 7 years or so, and her home is here. And so we have been moving around and ended up here. And the lovely thing about Lexington is that it's a very queer community, and it's a college town as well. The University of Kentucky's here. So even though Kentucky itself is very red, and Lexington is a very safe space. And so I have created a wonderful community of friends and support people here. I'm a member of PFLAG, our organization that, is a kind of an ally group. And it just is a really small, safe blue dot right now. That's a nice place to be. And good
Yeah.
bourbon too.
Kentucky is a strange state. It's like you have a Democrat governor, you have Mitch McConnell. It's like but it's fascinating there. It's Southern and not Southern at the same time in some ways.
It
Uh,
is. It is. It's definitely its own little ecosystem.
yeah, I actually interviewed a queer couple that own a wedding destination. It's in rural Kentucky. I think it's like an hour or so from where you are. It's not in a city. And they did a pop-up wedding for queer people in 2024, and I still need to publish that story. I wanna do a longer narrative podcast where I go to Kentucky and interview people all over the state. For some reason, I have this fascination. I've been there a few times, but, I just have to get the funding to go down there and do it, so maybe soon I'll be coming to visit. Uh,
Yay! That was so great, and what a great story. It really
yeah.
is an interesting mix of people here. And my hairdresser, whom I adore, he always calls himself the gayest redneck you'll ever meet. He has this deep Southern accent and is very gay, and it's just such an interesting mix of people. Kentucky gets a bad rap, I think,
Yeah.
a lot of ways, but it's been a good place to live.
And you said that you just had Pride there.
We just had Pride yesterday, so
Right.
I'm a
So
little sunburned today.
tell me a little bit about what that's like, because I've been to different prides around the world, big and small, and I think in smaller places, it's actually a bigger deal.
Yeah, yeah, and I went last year and this year, and it was much bigger this year even than it was last year. But it's a street that's blocked off, and there is a police presence around the whole entire street, so it feels very safe,
Mhm,
which is a thing for sure, right? You know, you wanna feel like nothing bad is gonna happen. And then it's just this joyful celebration. And there is music and there are dancers and there are booths of people, you know, handing out information, whatever you could possibly want and need. And there's just this feeling of camaraderie. And the small community I've created, everyone was there, and you run into your friends on the street, and it's just this lovely safe celebration. There we had a parade this year, which was twice as big as it was last year, so that was fun too. There were protesters, of course, there are always protesters, and they were walking through the crowds with their signs, and people were just playing drums and drowning them out, and um, but it felt very safe, and it was like a little tiny province town on one street in Lexington, Kentucky.
I think it's great. I mean, we're right on the verge of Pride Month for most of us. June, obviously, there's going to be lots of parties and celebrations and lots of events and lots of readings. Are you doing anything else for the book this month?
I have a reading in Indianapolis, which is my home,
Uh,
so I'm going there, yeah. And then a few other things that are happening, but, I think Pride's gonna be pretty quiet for me since we've already had it. There's Louisville Pride in the mid-month, and I'll probably go to that as well. The Kentucky Book Fair is coming up, and I'll be a part of that. So there's lots of things that are happening, but not necessarily around Pride. Um, but yeah, yeah.
Well, if you haven't already read Hurricane Lessons by Katrina, it's available. And you said that there's an audiobook available as well. There we go.
There it is. There is, and I got the best part of the book was that I got to record the audiobook myself, so I went to Connecticut and was in a, you know, big girl studio and got to spend a week there recording it, and that was really, really special and exciting. So, yes, it's my
Oh,
voice. So if you can stand this voice for about 6 hours,
that's exciting.
that's the version. Yeah, it was fun.
Well, I hope everyone checks it out. I will, obviously, in the notes in the newsletter when I send that out, there'll be links. And thanks so much for joining me, Katrina. This has been great.
It's been so good, Jerry. Thank you so much for having me. It was so good to finally talk to you in person.
Oh, before we leave, there is one question we just got at the final moment. Uh, how do you feel about the release of the book, and any advice you would give aspiring memoirists, especially regarding the friends, families, and exes? And I know you have changed names to protect some people's privacy. Anything on that count?
I did, yes. I feel great now having released the book. It was very scary when it first released, and I was waiting for this backlash because when I the published the Huffington Post article, it was a just a disaster. Not a disaster. The comments were a disaster, right? The trolls come
Don't
out.
read the comments.
Don't read the comments ever. Exactly. And so I thought,
I,
oh,
my Huffington Post essay, I had my husband read the comments, and I told him I didn't want to, and then finally I did, and then I stopped reading. But yeah.
that's so smart. That's good self care. I have to read every one of them. I don't know, it's some kind of masochistic thing, but I'm so grateful that it's out now, and I feel good that it's out, and I really just once my friends and family have read it and it gets into the hands of people that are not my friends and family, that's what feels really good to me. I want the people that want and need to read the story to read it, and I feel like that's where it is now. It's kind of reached the outer circles, so it feels great to have that.
Did you tell your kids not to read it?
No, I offered it. You know, before I published it, I said, "I want you all to read it if you want to, and if there's anything that feels uncomfortable or that you want me to change, I will change it." And they were all like, "We don't wanna read your book." So I don't as far as I know, they haven't read it. And in the early stages, I did ask my former husband to read it and my catalyst to read it, and they both gave me their blessing as well.
Oh,
But that was early on in the process, so a lot of it changed after that. But I changed their names and their identities, just for a little extra protection,
yeah.
and the kids as well. I did, I every person in the book, their their book name starts with the same letter as their own name, so I could keep them straight, and I asked my youngest son, who is George, who he wanted to be in the book, and he said, "I'd like to be Jesus." So that was my That was my favorite story about changing names. He's a funny dude.
I'm glad that you shared that, and, again, people should find Hurricane Lessons. It's available all over the place, on Bookshop, on Amazon, everywhere. Is there a specific place you want people to find the book?
I like to go through Bookshop because then indie bookstores are supported, so that's my favorite.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again, Katrina, and we will, I'm sure, talk more.
Yes, thank you so much, Jerry, and I can't wait to meet you in person when you come to Kentucky.
Great. All right.
Right. Thank you. Bye-bye.